All right, I got it up. We're rolling, broski.
Sweet.
So, technical difficulty when Seth hopped off. Uh, he did.
Fucking Seth, dude.
Uh, it's just he's having a rough go with the whole RB thing. Get a new motor going. Expect it to be 100%, and unfortunately, it wasn't. So maybe he'll share more on that later when he.
Yeah, he's going back and forth between the track right now, dealing with dead car. Sponsor driver coming in from another country that he's got to facilitate for this event. So he's got it a little rough right now.
So hopefully, if anybody out there has their own beefs with Nissan or RBs, hopefully you'll let us know. Uh, I've I've only owned two, I guess. One being a S14 KA, which was a giant hunk of shit, and then my giant hunk of shit S13. Ran great, looked like shit, but
What's up, guys?
Hey, Juan, we're back.
Adrian's like the king of Nissan out of all of us. With the shit, you've owned like what, 14 of them?
Shit, dude, it's a lot more than that, honestly. And then the amount that I've kept running and worked on, yeah, it's up there. You just kind of like you learn what kind of wrenches can be thrown at you, and then you just kind of expect them after that.
I think honestly, tying into this whole race prep thing, every engine transmission combo is going to have their own set of issues, and it comes down to what you're willing to deal with or work with that, and then go from there. Because obviously, RB's having their oil starvation issues. Well, really, Nissan in general. Um, Adrian can probably speak on Toyota more and their issues that they have, which I mean, honestly, it's not too bad, but when it
It's
is,
really just
it's
maintenance.
catastrophic.
It's really just maintenance, man. Like in Nissans, between the SR, the RB, fuck, even the VQs, like you start talking about rotaries and shit like that, they have mechanical weak points and Achilles heels. Whereas like Toyota, when you're talking about like one UZ, one JZ, two JZ motors and their applications, if you're given everybody staying within the limitations of what these motors can and can't do, uh, it comes down to maintenance, dude. Like you're more likely to starve an RB of oil or an LS drifting it with a front sump than you are a JZ, right? Like rocker arms in an SR. What else? Some LSs have wrist pin issues, and you know your
I
JZs
mean,
are
I had
really
those
just
the VVTI seal issues with my Jay Z.
yeah,
Which
JZs
isn't
are
that it's
just
not that big of
seals.
a deal, but it was just more of a pain. They're just a pain in the ass to get to. It becomes like an all day affair.
To be fair, I mean, you kind of have what when we were getting into JZX 100s, they were right around like 20 years old, 22 years old. So they're still on original seals. And with the OEM seals lasting that long, however many years of drift abuse that they had with previous owners and stuff like that, like you can expect at this mileage or this amount of time or heat cycles, whatever it is, hey, I'm going to have to change this seal out or keep an eye on it, right? So JZ's run a little warmer than some of the standard like inline six turbo motors. And so they cook the seals, they cook the wires, they cook the clips, like to kind of tie this into race preparation, at least on RBs and SRs, like First thing I do is I take the coil pack cover off, like multiple reasons. A, 9 times out of 10, I drift the car that I drive a majority of the time, which means everything under that coil pack cover is getting heat soaked, right? So going with an aftermarket one kind of it mitigates that, lets some of that heat dissipate, and it doesn't stick and cook your plastics and your wiring. Also, the ease of access for troubleshooting at the track, changing out spark plugs, whatever it is. Maybe a coil goes bad. Like when things get hot and you go and you just go to zap that bolt out, you're probably going to strip the threads around it off. Like race day application, motor's running hotter than usual. You're giving it the beans. It's got the sauce. Like shit gets hot, and most of these valve covers and heads are aluminum. And these bolts have been in and out quite a few times. There might be corrosion. Like if you're already having an issue, the last thing you want to do is make it worse by stripping some shit out at the track. So I usually leave the vents off so I'm not having to undo unnecessary amounts of hardware and shit like that, and potentially making my track day worse. But, staying within reason, good tunes, power levels, stuff like that, you don't really see any real mechanical issues from Toyota.
I
That
mean,
shit's been proven.
like I said, other than the VVTi seals that I had issues with, I mean, that car that I had ran pretty flawlessly. Not super crazy in power, I would probably say conservatively, because we were in Okinawa, so obviously we didn't have a dyno, but probably somewhere around 280, 300 to the rear wheels, I would say. I mean, yours was probably somewhere around 4, a little more than that. And it's
Well, it
just,
depends on which one.
well, the purple. I'm talking the purple one. Most people know the purple Kazama. Um, so it's
All right,
that
so we
car had
got
its own issues, but
we got Kevin hopping on here.
oh, buddy,
What is up, Kevin?
What's up, guys?
Hey, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we're gonna start talking about some pre-race day shit shows and like preparing for track days and shit like
yeah.
that.
Let's hear about you and then your race day prep before you get on the track.
Oof. Okay. Well, my name's Kevin. Some of you guys know me from Okinawa. Been drifting on and off since 2009. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I didn't get to drift much in Okinawa. I think me and Adrian only got to drift like once or twice together.
Yeah, it was only a couple times, dude.
I think it was like one good street session one night that I remember. I know you let me drive the 180 at Yambaru that I sold. Other than that, I feel like, I didn't really get the experience I wanted to in Okinawa, but I'm really, really fortunate that I did get that experience at least. Pretty much just going back and forth from Nissan S chassis to Toyota JZX chassis back into a S chassis now, trying to build my Sylvia Qs that I got to get it all drift ready eventually again. So just chilling at the moment, trying to get back into things and hopefully run Adrian's store pretty soon.
I don't know, man. I got a pretty
So
good
are you
head
down
start.
in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, not too far then.
Yeah, only like an
I was
hour.
just down there like not less than a month ago, probably. So
Bro,
Yeah.
it's 2 hours away from me and still
Yeah.
like doesn't even come say hi.
Yeah, dude, I've been so freaking busy, man, moving and freaking trying to get stuff settled, squared away over here, and it's been one thing after another, man. But yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for was it Leadfoot City over in Brooksville. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were actually just talking about that not that long ago either.
that's like
Where,
the halfway point from me to you. So that'd be cool.
yeah, I think I'm like 2 hours from Adrian,
Okay.
so I'm up way farther north in Yulee, Callahan.
So you'll probably be like 4 hours away from Leadfoot.
Yeah, like 3.5, I think. But I mean, hopefully, they're talking a big game with it, so hopefully it turns out to be something. It seems like they're trying to make it more of like a um, Matsuri type deal, having people out there partying all night and vendors and uh, concerts and stuff. So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I was looking at some of their previous drifting that they had going on. It's kind of like weird. It looked like it's kind of like I know it was like a small skid pad, but it's like how they were doing it. It almost seemed like there was no like real actual layout. Basically, it was kind of just like do
Yeah.
your own line kind of thing.
It
And
was a shit show, dude. They
yeah,
kind of just used it, I guess, as a demo type
yeah,
thing.
I get it. Like it put on a show for everyone and stuff like that. It was just kind of like it's kind of odd, Which I mean, hey, like maybe just trying something new, I guess, different out and seeing what happens. I know they're about putting on a show and stuff like that. So I hope that people can actually get good seat time and not waste their time going out there and just. I know back in the day, I don't know if you guys know what Central Florida Road Course or Racing Complex was, CFRC.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard
In
it mentioned quite a
Orlando,
bit.
there was CFRC and there's DeSoto Speedway, which is now Freedom Factory. Um, DeSoto was my first actual track day back in 2009, and then but back then when drifting was getting way more popular back like I don't know to what 2010, 2011, 2012, those years over here in Florida, especially Central Florida. Um, I noticed like they were really focusing on like their A group drivers, and there was like some weird stuff behind the scenes where they were just about the show and making money and stuff, and it was kind of a little more difficult. Like the lower class drivers actually trying to get seat time and get better and focus on themselves, and they were just really trying to focus on putting a show. Like they did like A, B, and C group, and I think sometimes D group, depending, but they would really cut down like the lower class, like C and B groups times, just so A group could get the most time to put on a show and stuff like that for everyone, which is kind of like shitty because everybody goes there and with the same intentions, just they spend the same amount of money and they try to learn the sport and stuff like that and get better, and it's like you're limiting everybody from that, I guess, success. I don't know, but I really hope it doesn't end up being something like that because that would be real unfortunate.
Well, I know there was a lot of people I've seen they're bitching about it being an 8 mile drag strip there,
Oh
and
yeah,
why not a quarter mile drag strip? But one, the money involved in it, and then trying to get obviously the local government to approve it, and then the biggest thing is people don't realize how much that extra 8th mile really puts stress on your car. I mean, I get it. People don't care if they're going out there to race, but there's a lot of people that, obviously every one of us drive our car for the most part to a track for whatever type of event and drive it home. So it's,
yeah.
I think it'll be better. Hopefully they do more grudge style racing as far as the drag strip goes, but that's what
I
I'm
think
more.
that's I think he put a video out there and saying that's what they were. I guess they wanted a vote, right? Like see what everybody was more interested in. I think that's what they were leaning towards, stuff like that.
So, Kevin, you've been drifting longer than me. We're both from Florida. We both went to Japan. Now we're both back, right? So, what do you think has changed with kind of back in the day how you'd get ready to go sliding versus now and like kind of the in between? Did it like move up like slowly, gradually to where it makes sense now, or like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I guess that just depends on like your personal like goals, right? Like everybody's, people just get into it. Like I know back in the day, we were, I'm sure just like most people, stealing tires from fucking Tires Plus or whatever, right? Like used tires in the back, just drifting on whatever you can get, not caring. Nobody's checking tire pressures, stuff like that. Just run what you brung, I guess is I guess more of a way of putting it. But now I guess it depends too on like your competitiveness, right? So I know you competed more than me. I only really have one good competition under my belt. I have like two or three, but really one good, well organized competition under my belt. And then yeah, I mean I learned from RDC in 2023. That was like eye opening. Even for drifting since 2009, it's been off and on financially and other stuff. And it would just like, I don't know, kind of like you watch Formula Drift. I've watched Formula Drift throughout the years, and D1 stuff, and you learn stuff like that. You talk to other people. Like I've talked to you when you were running all those different circuits in Oki and stuff like that. And you kind of get like a understanding of stuff. But when you actually do it yourself, like you actually take the time and prep and get ready for like those competitions and stuff like that, it's like a whole nother ball game, right?
Yep.
Like it's way more, I guess, stressful. Obviously, it's mentally exhausting, physically exhausting than just like, oh, we're going to the track day today, let's just load up and go and have some fun. It's like, there's a funness
There's no such thing.
there's like a funness to it also, but like at the same time it's a lot more like seriousness, I guess. Like you gotta like, if you're that, it depends. Like I said, like everybody maybe just like, I there's some guys out in Okie just like they take competitions as just another track day.
Yeah.
Like they just go and they run their cars or whatever setup they have, whatever that shit could be running on 3 cylinders. They don't care. Like they're running OSD, like they're running on ball tires. They just they give it their all, and but yeah, I guess it depends on your like your level and your mentality of it. I guess like what you want to accomplish. uh, you know Tire pressure is a big thing. Alignment setup's a big thing. Back in the day, like I didn't give a fuck what my alignment was. Like
Yeah.
I put a little bit of front camber and I had stock knuckles and coilovers and a welded diff, and didn't change fucking fluids ever, just went out there and car's freaking borderline overheating, just fucking clutch kicking it, beating the shit out of it. And now it's like, okay, you're going to make sure your fluids are freaking ready to go, all fresh. You're making sure your tires, are all good. Tire pressures, alignment specs, all that it's just so much more now. Like, at least for me, I take it a little bit more serious. Even just like, daily driving, like throughout the years, like you want to make sure like your stuff's top notch. It's better that way. It's like safe, I guess, better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Like
Do
you
you think
put,
it's more so because you have more money invested now, or obviously the cars are more expensive? I mean, getting
I
back
think
into a Sylvia or a JZX or a Skyline, I mean, it's not cheap anymore.
it's definitely not cheap. To me, I feel like it was never cheap. But it's definitely, you see a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of different variables, but I feel like, yeah, money is definitely a factor. And with anyone, I mean, you see people running, you know, FD, pro spec stuff like that, and you see like they're like, dude, it takes so much money and time and stuff, and it's wild, man. It's like, damn, you really like break it down and see how much it costs and stuff like that. But even just a normal track day, I mean, tires are more expensive than they used to be. I feel like tires in Japan were way cheaper. I come here and I'm looking
Oh
at tire
yeah.
prices, and the same tires are like freaking 30, 40, $50 more a tire.
Oh shit.
Oh no, did we lose Kevin?
Damn.
Well, until Kevin comes back, one thing that he covered was, the time that it takes, and never mind the fact that we got day jobs too, right? We got regular jobs we got to work. Fortunately, I own my shop, so I'm working at my shop, but really the customers are the boss, right? You got projects to do, and I've literally been grinding since 8 o'clock this morning. Um, and it wasn't until after 5 when I closed my doors that I was able to work on my car and prep it. From mounting tires, doing the fluids on it, like Kevin had mentioned. I had to do. I went to go do plugs, and good thing I did because my plugs were fouled like a son of a bitch. And in the process, you got the OEM fucking spark cables that were never replaced in 160,000 miles. So then you're putting new spark plug or spark cables in and hoping somebody's got them in town. So there is a lot. There is a lot that goes into the preparation. Um, Even for me, man, I've got a whole nother car to go pick up after I drop this one at the track. Um, Tomorrow morning, I got to go drop one car and go pick up another. So it's kind of like, you got to mentally prepare yourself for that, and being able to balance that with having a family and having a job. It's a lot, man. But we do it for the love of the sport, and I'm sure as hell having fun with it. I'm sure Adrian is too, and Cody when he gets settled and stuff, is gonna have a good time.
Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, at the
it's
end of the day, I mean, even if I can't and can only make a couple events, I'll at least I'll be able to smash Adrian's brand new Kazama kit. And
Let's not do that. It's not as cheap to replace as it was in Oki when I
no, no,
wasn't.
I'm gonna totally hit it, and I'm just gonna be like, "Here's the keys to my car," and I'm out.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but even then, like my for my example, I got we got sponsors. We have to get them on the car at some point, and I've already done one race without sponsors on the car, and they're kind of like, yeah, we paid for this to get put on, and you didn't do it, So there's people you got to answer to too, man, and not everybody's fortunate enough to have sponsors. It really just comes down to you know how well do you market yourself. We're very fortunate. We do a lot of business with our local businesses that do sponsor us, so. They're pretty lenient about it, but even then, I still probably drop another, I don't know, $1,500 this week. You know what I mean? On tires, fluids, parts. Getting my cage in there that costs money. You know what I mean? Even though I did it myself, still got to buy the material. You know what I mean? So it absolutely does take time. It takes a lot of money. It's definitely not a poor man's sport. I wish it was because I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. Than what I do. Not saying that I don't, but I'd probably enjoy it a lot more if it was cheaper to race. But like I said, man, I've got one car in the trailer now, and we just got done prepping it and didn't have any fucking time at all during my work day because we just got slammed on a Friday. So had to wait till after we closed to kind of get some stuff done and hopefully come out with a podium tomorrow. We'll see.
Good luck.
Yeah,
So I used to
good
do
luck with
this whole
that.
like cramming shit in, and you guys know that from the Oki days. Like I would be pulling like 2 all-nighters, like prepping the car because I would daily drive it Friday to work and then be like, oh, I got to do all this shit overnight, get like an hour of sleep, if that, and then drive to the track to go compete Saturday morning.
Car's barely running.
Car's barely running. Like I had a shit tuner back then. Like it wasn't Seth. I'll leave it at that. And yeah, like it was a terrible experience. Cramming all that shit in. And then kind of when I got to Vegas and I built that Pro-Am car, that party car, having the truck, having the trailer, not street driving my car, like daily driving my actual drift car, uh, I kind of took prep more serious. So like it would start on Wednesday and I would just go light. And I think it's like really crucial and important to build cars that don't break, which I think a lot of people don't do these days. I think a lot of people just like go for the bright, shiny shit. They slap it on the car. They expect like a horsepower gain and they want to see numbers on a dyno. And then it fails at the track day, right? So we went to Showtime last year with East Coast Drift, like all those guys. And they're at the track, and I shit you not, every fucking LS car there was broken. Right? At least 2 of them rod knocked. Not doing anything impressive, not smoking out the crowd, like just out there for like a warm-up lap, rod knocked the motor. Right? One of the BCD dudes like pushed out an oil pressure sensor.
Jeez.
And it was every LS car there, from like street junkyard built to grassroots to pro-am to like there was even a pro level LS car that rod knocked itself when we were at Showtime. And it's like you look at these builds and you're like, why would it blow up like that, right? And that's the kind of shit that like I see more often, even when I was like pit crewing over on the West Coast, dude, is like you have guys that are running like $200,000-$400,000 race programs between what they're using to haul shit in, their car builds themselves are 6 figures, and the shit's just repetitively breaking. Right? Like, let's throw 550 horsepower through a stock JZ to a dog box to a stock diff.
Damn.
Right?
I think some of that is like an outlier though, because most people that are at that level, they know that their shit's gonna get fixed regardless. They've got a
It's
car that
true.
they've got a car that they can go practice with and fuck up. They've got a car that just in case, and then they have their car that is strictly for competition that is going to see 1 or 2 laps at a time and be able to cool back down. I mean, that's why, at least from what I've seen, you have all of these top level drifters that are kind of going away and going back to the grassroots level because they want to go out and be able to run 20 or 30 laps before they get tired of actually driving, instead of do a lap and then spend the next 20 minutes in the pits, people going over tunes, people going over different things, in their computer modules and things like that to double check everything, temperatures, and then tweaks, and then okay, now after this 30 minutes I get to go run my car for one more lap. Like, that shit's not fun to me. Nobody really wants to do that. I mean, and I get it, it's a business at that point, but I think
See,
honestly,
that's the thing though, is like if you're competing in a car or you're having a track day, it should be built to where you don't have to put your hands on it whenever you give it the beans. Like when you lay into it, it should be able to take it, right? So if you're spending the money on all this shit, the tow rig, the paint job, the vinyls, the stickers, the real wheels, the body kits, the flashy fucking seats, like if you're spending the money on all that shit, what good is it if you can't drive it for a majority of the day, whether it's a competition or whether it's a track day? Because here's the thing. I mean, most people might not agree with it, but if I'm at a track day, like a private day, I'm pushing, right? Like practice how you play. I would rather my 80% be somebody's 100% the day of competition.
well, like a prime example, and maybe it's not a good one, but like Chelsea Denofa had his whole ordeal with going back to more or less a fucking shitbox BMW, where he was saying, "Hey, I'd rather drive this all day than drive my actual race car because I can go out and I can get a higher level of practice than I can with this car that I know is going to do exactly the same thing every single time, and it's more or less luck whether or not the car runs right."
Yeah, it's like you say, like it's almost like they peak, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I get that when you're at like a build like that, like, yeah, it's like you
That's a
see
little
some,
different story.
but it's like you see some people, they haven't had much experience driving like a basic car, and they build a freaking completely like pro spec car or something, and they pick up on it, and they're really good. You put them in like a lower power car and lower spec car, street spec, minimal angle mods and all that shit, and they're not that good of a driver. There's drivers like that too.
We've had that conversation before on here. Particularly with Adrian, when it comes to when he started grassroots racing. I mean, it was 190 horsepower. You know what I mean? And send it all the way. But I've also seen, and again, I'm gonna use Adrian as an example. He's had some shit box beaters, but the motor ran. Shit didn't break at the track. It might
I
not all been one color, but it
he's
Yeah.
ran.
he's
You know what I
definitely
mean?
he's definitely giving it hell for sure. He's
Oh
definitely
yeah, you know what I mean. And
big
he's beating the
ride.
dog shit out of it.
I
Yeah, I just want to say it's crazy to me that I feel like Adrian's had better luck with Nissan out of anybody that I know. Like his Nissans have been like more or less like straight turds.
They were running off of real
Like,
gold.
but then
Pretty
somehow,
much. Yeah.
and then somehow they work all day. But then take out the purple chaser, and it's like we're pushing that shit off the track.
I think so. What ended up happening was it really just came down to the people that I entrusted with things. Like the whole time that I was running SRs, like I was heavily reliant on the Japanese locals for parts, tuning, stuff like that. And as much as people don't like, as much as people want to argue like they're stuck in the 80s and 90s with their tech, the shit just fucking works. Like I will take old tech, I will take the L and not have the 50 horsepower that's potentially left on the table for an SR that's going to fucking run all day. Now, I say that because I've been in the JZs that are rolling cold down the straightaway. Right? I've been in the JZ, the 1Js and 2Js that I go out, I do a lap and it runs great because for whatever reason it runs fine when it's cold, and then after a lap it heats up and it wants to like fuel maps all over the place because a certain individual said they could tune it and couldn't. And I know that headache, right? And so my luck kind of ran out with that shit as soon as I started to break that system of, hey, there's a subject matter expert for these, and it's the Japanese. And then I started going to the American side of like, okay, let's do these name brand parts, these updated things. And even then, like, I still had issues. Like, Seth was there trying to get the Adaptronic to fucking run in the Sylvia. And after like 2 weeks of trying to fuck with it and log it and make changes on the base map, like we couldn't get it to fire up. And my fix for it was I put a Power FC in it, and on the base map, it literally fired up as soon as I bumped the key. Right? Like I don't know what my luck was over there, but that's just how the fuck it went. I came back to the States and I've been screwed over on 3 SR deals trying to get my Sylvia back up and running. Right? Like, yeah, I got lucky in Japan. That's cool, but like
I was gonna
these
say,
motors in America, bro.
in my perspective, it's funny because it's like a lot of cars in the U.S. that are SR cars. Not all of them, but I feel like a lot of them that I've seen are like just thrown together, run like shit, always breaking. Everybody gives them a bad name. Then the cars that I've seen, at least on the American side for the most part, over in Japan, a lot of the JZ cars are that way. People don't know
Yeah.
how to know how to take care of them. But all the local guys with SRs are usually out there beating the shit out of the cars, and they're fucking reliable. But then over here, it's like you see somebody with a JZ over here, like a JZ Swap 240 or something like that, and they're like running great for some reason. That's just my
Yeah.
perspective that I've seen throughout the years. It's funny how it's like flopped like that for some reason.
I think some of that just has to do with obviously money, because you getting parts over there even for JZs and stuff. I mean, it was still expensive, but over here, that it was never a thing. So I guess people that have them want to take care of them better. It wasn't at that time frame. It wasn't anything to be like in a group chat and be like, "Oh, I need this a brand new JZX because I blew mine up," and somebody's like, "Oh, here's one right here for $1,200." You know,
So the mentality that like I picked up on at least back in Oki, was like there was kind of like a social status with the JZXs over S chassis. And towards when Adam LZ, like not to point fingers, like did that video of him coming and doing an Ibizu Matsuri and like the JZX became popular, you saw a lot of those military dudes come that were coming in, like watch those videos, and they were getting into JZXs for clout, right? Like to be straight up, it was a straight up clout move. It was like, yo, I want name brand, BN Sports, VSKFs, and it was like to die for
Oh, yeah.
that.
VSKFs. Everybody wanted VSKFs.
You know
Everybody
what's
wanted
crazy is
VSKFs on them, right? But like those dudes didn't know a damn thing about the platform, the engines, like what they like, what they don't like, how to set them up, how to tune them. And everybody was like essentially a fanboy because it was on a viral YouTube video, right? And nobody cared for the S chassis. Like S chassis were cheap all the way up until they were 25 years old, right? Like JZXs were at least triple the price the entire time.
well, like for me, I ended up in a JZX for the simple fact that I had a family.
Mm,
Like having, trying to fit a baby seat in the back of a S chassis, just it ain't it.
possible, but yeah, not it.
I mean, and especially
Yeah.
one, how hot Oki gets, and then
Yeah.
my AC worked like half the time. So,
So you got
but
that
then I hopped
VIP
in, got
style.
that, I got that JZX, and it was like night and day difference. Everything worked,
Yep.
and
They're just a better car,
I
dude.
could fit my kid in the back. I could fit all my shit in the back.
You had
It
power
was great.
windows.
And the big thing was I couldn't afford the car that I really wanted, which was I wanted to see 35 Laurel. Like that was my car that I really wanted, but it wasn't in the cards for me.
The
Man,
Wish.com JZX.
Now, well, see, it was really after Seth was working on that like emerald green one. I was like, that's what I want.
The
I
is
one
don't
that
with the
know.
RB.
the RB26 one? I was just about
Yeah.
to that one.
Yeah. That's
It was
that's. I
sweet.
was like, I want that.
I
Like,
saw that at the track a couple of times. I think it was pretty nasty.
I mean, I didn't give a shit what engine came in it. I just, I like the look of them. My oldest daughter, her middle name is Laurel. Like, that's hopefully I can
Guys,
get one, but
I got to cut out a little bit early on this one. I still got some prep to do, and I got to go spend some time with my family before I take all their time tomorrow.
Heck yeah.
So I appreciate you guys, Kevin. Thanks for jumping on, dude. I'm gonna
Yeah,
pop
no
out,
problem.
guys.
Thanks
I'll
for
see you.
having me.
remember,
Yeah,
if you're
good
not
talking to you.
first, you're last.
See you,
That's
Juanita.
right.
Good luck.
I don't know how to leave this thing.
You just hit leap. There you go. Okay, he's gone. But yeah, dude. I mean, it was definitely a social status car until it was a clout car, and like that whole generational vibe kind of set things into motion where it was like they fell into the trends of I'm just going to throw name brand shit on the car. Like I know when you got over there, Kevin, like you introduced Odyssey Fab
Mm-hmm.
to all of Okinawa, right?
Pretty
And
much.
like I'm still pretty good friends with you and Tyler. Like I bug Tyler at least like once every couple months to buy something from him.
Mm-hmm.
But like at the time it was introducing a new part in and we were still trying to get people to buy the right shit in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they would still like, nah, I don't need to do my valve stem seals. I'm gonna buy knuckles,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm gonna buy extended LCAs. Like I'm gonna go for the look before I worry about servicing my car,
Yep.
Well,
right?
dude, all
And
my stuff came from your house, pretty much,
yeah,
or meet you. Like my shit was secondhand to the fullest. Like pulled that whole uh, R154 swap out of that car that was crashed underneath your house,
oh yeah, dude, that was a good time.
and then
Damn great. When I got there, I got that Chaser in 2018, and I couldn't find any freaking parts for that car, man.
So
I was
I'll
going
tell you, like,
around. I didn't know any better. I hardly knew anyone. I only had like a few friends that were in the cars, and I was just introduced to Adrian, so me and him weren't really friends at the time. And I'm like asking around. I'm going to like random scrap yards trying to find a clutch pedal for my Chaser, trying to find an R154 something to piece this thing together. And these Japanese dudes are looking at me like, "Are you crazy, dude?" They're like, "What? R154?" They're like laughing at me and shit. And I'm like, "Okay, I guess that's how it is. All right." Like, I didn't know that it was gonna be that freaking hard to come by. Because they look at you and they're like, one, sometimes they don't want to deal with you because you're American. Two, they're like, "Yeah, right, bro. Like, good luck finding that shit." You know what I mean? I was like, okay, like,
bro, they're like back then the R154 like 1JZ swap was the equivalent of like today's like LST56 combo. Like they exist, but everybody holds on to the shit. Like nobody wants to let it go.
Yeah.
And when an American would crash their JZX, it was crazy because like back then you could go buy a full 1JZ with an R154 for like $1,500. Like ORC super single clutch, every like JZX 110 turbo on a X100 pull out, like you could get it good, slap it in your car, do some maintenance shit, and be on the road for like $2,000.
So I probably had that car probably a year before you got there. I think I paid, no, I traded my S13 for a JZX 100, a TRD JZX 100, and
which was a smart move.
Which it was automatic, and then ended up paying. I think I gave Adrian like $1,000 for the full swap, and he helped me put it in.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. We still have pictures.
I think, and then
what's funny is so that KTS brace that we put on your car, when we got it back off, it's still on. It's on my JZX right now.
Damn, because I mean, I remember we had bought, solid mounts for everything in the rear. Obviously all the bracing. I was running Adrian's welded diff that he had in like 4 other cars, and somehow that thing was still holding up. And I was driving it every day from where pretty much from Kadena up to Hanson every day on the
Dude, shout out
highway.
to, I forget his name, but he worked at Sheet Metal.
Dude, whoever welded that thing,
bro, he just sat there and was dropping bolts into that bitch.
Well, because I
we're,
know
we're on the flight line at the sheet metal shop, and he's just like, he's got that thing cherry red, and he's just like adding filler, dropping like bolts in there, just whatever he could. That thing was a molten like ball of steel. And he's like, all right, bro, I would let this thing cool off for like an hour and a half before we touch it. And I was like, okay, bet. We finished up that night. The next day, it was in the case, back in the car, and we took that shit out. And that was actually my first experience with a welded diff, and I did not like it.
Yeah, but that thing, I mean, it didn't you always have like clunks and rattles and stuff with a welded diff.
So
that thing was so smooth.
The back way to Torrey. So like you go out Kadena Gate 3, you make the left, you go like past the flight line, and then when you make a right at that next light, that was my way to work every morning. And when it would rain, when I had that welded diff, I would, no matter how slow I went, it would always kick out.
Bro, them roads are insane over there, dude.
Oh, bro, everybody over here bitches about OSW being the skid pad being slick. And I'm like, bro, this is like Okinawa, like Yambaru in the dry.
They got no idea until they drive a wet street in Okinawa.
My wife did a second gear burnout and was like holding it in the Kadena PX parking lot. And like she had no idea that she was like breaking the car loose. And I'm like, you need to calm down before I get arrested.
Well, dude, people don't believe that like we're running stock S chassis on like 18265 at 10 psi. I was actually just having this conversation like an hour and a half ago with Kip, actually. He's like, bro, the fact you guys run 18265s in the front is wild. And I'm like, we can still slip them, dude. Like the difference in grip because of how they mix their asphalt in Okinawa is insane. So you have to compensate with that bigger tire and grippier compound.
But dude, I got videos over here running 255s on I think a 10 and like a 9.5. And people were telling me back in the day on my 240, I just had like a T25 and like at one point it's like one of those hybrid 25, 28 turbos, but it was like not tuned on like 12 psi or whatever. People are like, there's no way you're gonna spin the 255s, and there's no way you're gonna push the 255s in the front on a 10 like in the front. I'm like, bro, watch me, dude. I do it all the time. And people are like telling me all day, and I'm like, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, I'm out here street drifting at the track, drifting on 255s, 265s occasionally when I grab them, just because I just wanted some tires. Like, those are just what I came by. I couldn't afford 235s or anything else or whatever. And I'm like, people are like, there's no way. I'm like, dude, my car makes like stock power. Like, I don't understand what you're freaking out about.
Yeah,
like,
I think
I had a welded diff like that.
My S chassis, I think I was running like a square setup of like 255s, and they were still stretched on NS2Rs. And that thing would slide out like you're on ice.
And what's funny is the NS2R like 80 treadwear tire was the standard for competitive drifting there.
Yeah,
like,
they ran a lot.
The comparison between like the tire game from over there to like here in the States is insane, because these guys are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna run some like Mucho Macho Ling Long tires, like 400 treadwear 235s on like a 500 horsepower car, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro? Like, we're out there, we're like, yo, we got to grip these cars up, we got to get as much grip as possible. And it's funny, I actually drove the Sylvia fresh off the boat from Japan. We went out, we put like 93 and some octane booster in the tank and took it out to the street spot on 245s. And, I was drifting 285s on that car the last time I drove it.
You know what's funny? So after I did my bolt-ons and tuned with the 110, and I was pushing like 23 psi. So the car, Okinawa butt dyno, I assume was making at least 400. That's what it should have rightfully made. Maybe a little bit more. I was running 265s at one point, and I thought it was too grippy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That was just me. I was like, dude, this feels kind of weird. Like, I was out drifting, and I was like, I don't know. So I bumped it down to a 235, and I felt great on a 235 40 that was on a 9.5 though. But that also has to do with suspension and stuff like that too, which I know all.
Oh, dude, yeah. So like,
it's not just that; it's it's also the weight of the car and how it is distributed too. Because like that SPC I had was like the original no trunk car. Like, I had a piece of plywood in the back of it so I could put my shit back there. So like there was no weight in that car. I mean, it was like completely rusted out, cut everything and painted over so where it wouldn't keep rusting out. But that
I'm
car,
saying like car running 285s with Japanese gas, that like everything's still the same, tires still the same. Like, we went to the S turns in Las Vegas, which was like the street spot, like where Forrest Wang and all those dudes used to slide. And bro, I could not kick it loose. I'm going like full tilt, third gear. Like, keep in mind, I would spin fourth in Oki. Like, third to fourth shift would like spin the tires.
Mm-hmm.
And literally same setup. And I'm just like, I couldn't keep it sideways in third. We went to Apple Valley, same thing. I went from the 200 treadwear to like a 400 treadwear tire, which was like from a 265 to a 255, aired up to like 50 psi. Dude, I could not keep it like loose. Trying to initiate down the straightaway, like at the hut where everybody initiates at, like it wouldn't kick out.
The asphalt, man.
Dude, the grip level in America is insane.
I don't know. You never got to drive multi-field, right?
I left, and then like 6 months later they opened it up.
Yeah, we both left right before they opened it up.
Okay, so I was, we would have been right down the street. I mean, I was right down the street, which was great. and it's only
That
like
shit was in your backyard, bro.
drive, bro. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a half, it's a half day unless it's a competition or a private day. But even then, like I was like talking about the tires and stuff like that. Like when I ran RDC, I had a brand new pair of just the regular Kinda KR20 tires in the rear, and I went out there and was doing a qualifying run. I had practice on some used tires. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna put my new tires on and try to break them in for tomorrow's comp. And I went out there and I was like bombing my freaking qualifying runs, and I'm like, dude, this shit, it was like pissing me off. It's because like tire pressures and like brand new tires and that asphalt, dude. Like that asphalt out there is way different than like street drifting out there in Oki and stuff like that, or even like Yammer.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And I'm like, dude, what the heck? And Robbie was cool. He came. Robbie Nishida was walking the pits, and he talked to a couple of us, and he was like, yeah, man, just try bumping your tire pressures up, like, real high. He's like, that's what we used to do back in the day. He's like, you'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. He's like trying to give me some pointers. And I was like, dude, these things are way too grippy. I bumped the tire pressures up, and I was like, even still having a little bit of trouble. I'm like, bro, this is crazy. So I just threw the used set on for the comp the next day. I was like, screw it, dude. Like, I'm just going to go out there and just give it my all. And whatnot. But it was like a major difference, like driving the streets over there, and then even multi-field, like the way that whatever pavement, asphalt, whatever they use for that track is insane.
I'm pretty sure they had to for the licensing, and insurance and shit like that.
I know they're real picky on that stuff over there.
I mean, it took like a year just for them to pour the concrete.
Yeah.
Like, and then I remember they poured it, and then they were like, "It's wrong. We have to redo it." So, because I mean, I know when I first got there, they were talking about building that, and then 4 years later, they still weren't even done with it.
Do y'all talk to anybody out there still, like local wise? They were
not really.
There was rumors going around. I don't know, probably a year and a half ago, probably more like a year ago, I guess. No, because I left like a year ago, so a little bit more than a year. But anyways, they were talking about, the owner Yambaru was talking about extending the track out there and making it big. But I don't know if they ever did. I know he opened up the very back. They built like a motocross track back there. They had. Like,
I think I would still go to Yambaru over the multi-field.
Oh, Yambaru's definitely. They're both different beasts, I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't know. I like multi-field. It's a lot. It feels, when you're actually driving it, a lot bigger than it you think it is. It's a lot more room than you think it is.
I feel like the multi-field would be better just for the simple fact of how close it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
I mean, you're not having to drive an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah.
Like that in itself, being able to wake up and if as long as all your shit's packed up,
yeah,
leave
it's
30 minutes.
Which I don't mind supporting, obviously, the track and whatnot. But it's, like you said, the drive and it's less cost less, and you break your shit, you don't have to pay $200 to tow it back. Shit like that. Like,
dude, I still remember breaking the Yambaru and like using a seatbelt to get home as a tow strap.
Oh my god!
Well, because Lord knows you couldn't leave your shit out there.
Yeah, they were really against that shit.
Well, not just I mean, you come back and next thing you know, you're missing half your fucking car.
Which I heard after I left, what they feared would happen happened there.
Bro, that was a bit of a wild kind of situation, I guess. They they fucked that place up.
So what ended up happening with that?
I can't remember the whole story exactly. I talked to Eric. You remember, like, OG Eric?
Yeah.
So he was in the group chat that we were all talking about it, and he told me he knew most of the story. So he was telling us like all the factual shit. I can't remember exactly the whole thing, but I guess there was a couple people who went up there and they stole a bunch of parts. They vandalized the place. They stole a bunch of one-off parts, like Wisteria parts, off of the like Comp 180 that they were building there. You know, it was like shit. Like if you ever saw it in public or on the marketplace, like, you know, it's one-off shit. Like it's definitely gonna be like the one in Okinawa. Like unless you're selling that shit on Yaj or something, you know, maybe you'll get away with it, but you probably won't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Apparently, I heard that they stole a bunch of shit. The cops had ended up, they investigated or something. The cops were like onto the person. The dude like freaking tried to ditch the car or something at a beach or something afterwards because they got the license plate somehow. But by then, like he ditched the parts in like his garage or something. And apparently they were like minors, and one of them was I forgot his name. He was involved with it though. It was like the dude's friend, and he tried to like play it off or something. Yeah. Do you remember that dude who was? I think his name was Damien.
Yeah, Steel.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure his dad tried to back him up and all that stuff, but he was involved in it somehow, and he somehow got off the hook. I don't know, but that guy, the other his friend or whatever, I'm pretty sure he got in a lot of trouble for it. But they found, I think it was Eric or somebody else in that group chat, I can't remember. They knew who that dude was, and they drove by his house, and they peeked in, like they could see kind of like in, I guess he had like a window in like a garage, and they could kind of peek in the garage a little bit and saw that there was a bunch of the same parts that Miyagi, right? Is it Miyagi-san?
Yeah.
Yeah, he like listed, like I had the whole list. Like Eric was like, bro, if y'all see these parts, I mean, it was like fucking 25, 30 parts or something like that, the whole list of shit. He's like, be on the lookout. And they found like a good handful, like sitting in this, like through the window, sitting on the garage and shit. They were like, yeah, bro, it was definitely him. And I don't know, he got all the parts. I don't know if he got all the parts back. I think he got some back. I don't remember, but yeah, it was a fucked up situation. And then Miyagi-san closed down the track for Americans for a little bit, and he was like talking about not ever opening it up for Americans ever again. And then Eric and his brother, you know, because they're kind of like some of the OG gaijin, they went up there and were like, oh, you know, try to talk to him, you know, because, you know, they're friends with him and stuff. And after a little bit, he's like, I just want everything to cool down, you know, and whatnot. So he ended up opening up to Americans again. But for a while, it was just locals only and like reservation only type shit. Like usually that's kind of like how it was anyways. And like people would just show up and pay, and he would just let people in. Even on like private days. Like I remember, like at least for the American guys, like everybody be like, yeah, bro, we're having a private day, like 15 driver cap or whatever. You go there, you pay your money, and then like all these people are showing up. And you know, I don't think he's gonna say no to extra money, bro. So he's just letting like an extra 5 or 6 cars, you know, show up. And like,
Yeah.
but then it was like, you know, issue because people weren't fucking listening. They were being jackasses and shit. But it is what it is.
That's
because I know I used to go up there and pay. I'm like, bro, I'm not driving, like, but I'll pay you the money because I just want to hang out. Like, and then my car's paid for, so if somebody needs to use it, you know, we'll
which is
figure something
wild
out.
because that's how OSW is, where they're like, oh, you can only have like X amount of people. I'm like, why are you turning away money, dude? Like,
Is that part of the insurance thing or something? Or like
I have no clue, dude. That
policy?
shit's set up so dumb.
I
think
when you described it to me, I was like, bro, I don't ever want to be involved in that, because you said it was like so many different hands in it. It's like, who do you even trust, like type thing. So the way it sounded,
you can't get a straight answer. Like, and I think that's the issue with Tracks here, bro, is like we tried to work with the firm on doing the 5K shootout. We're like, look, dude, like we'll just run it as you, right? Like, fuck being an organizer as a separate entity and all this bullshit. Like, we'll do it under you, and you just keep the profits, right? And we'll run with it like that. And they're like, nah. So right out the gate, like one round was like 12 grand in logistical cost as an organizer, not including like day of expenses. Damn.
So I was gonna ask him too, but do you see yourself going out to this Harvest Drift event?
Probably not, dude. I don't really fuck with those guys like that. So,
Well, be able to go out there and take some money and go home.
I don't think they're doing the comp round. I didn't read the flyer.
Because it had popped up on my
I think
on
it's just a
my
track day.
Facebook.
Yeah, it popped up on mine too, but it's kind of one of those things like when I left it, I just washed my hands with it, and a lot of people hit me up in the near future, and I was like, I'm not involved, dude. So
Because I was just thinking, it's fairly cheap. I mean, to go out there for the day, as long as
it is, dude. And like
I'm
when I
not
went and
working.
toured the facility to actually get Citrus County like contracted for the year for us to use their facility, that facility is amazing for being a small track. I mean, they've got a trackside bar with a brand new wood deck and VIP seating. Like you can sit on the wall. It's one of the few tracks that's grandfathered in with like that proximity of spectator to like track. So if somebody's doing a wall ride, like you can literally like you're 6 inches away from them, right? They've got the crow's nest with VIP seating, with like air conditioned um, containers that are like 20 feet up, and you get a couch and some bench seats and some bar stools and a refrigerator for your drinks and stuff, and you can fit like 20 people up in there. It's a
Before you
good
had cut
time.
out, Kev, I was asking if you were. Well, I was going to ask you if you were planning on going to that Harvest Drift event right down there near you.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even know anything about it. Where's that at OSW or is that at
Citrus County.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even know there was a thing in Citrus County.
So it says that it's November 9th from 1 to 11 p.m.
Hmm.
And then it's $125 to go drive. So it doesn't seem like it'd be too bad. I mean, being that close. So
I would love to go. I can't wait to get back on the track again, or at least just fucking drive the car how I want it. But
so what
my car won't be done, and I can't tell you how long. But
so what all do you have to do to it? 'Cause I'm
so
assuming it's sitting right next to you.
it's no, it's outside right now. But it's a Sylvia Q's automatic, so it's an NA automatic. But I have pretty much a whole garage full of parts almost. But slowly, the other day I was finally getting like some of the adjustable arms on it, stuff like that. I have the 5-speed trans, I have the clutch, flywheel, all that. I just got the flywheel bolts the other day. The only, I guess, the major stuff that I really need to do that I still need to get is complete my hot side setup for my NAT, which is I have the manifold downpipe elbow. I just need a turbo.
A spoolie boy.
Yeah, and I need the piping and intercooler. I need a good radiator still. That's pretty much.
If you
That's
go
almost
fast
it.
enough,
Oh,
you don't need that.
huh?
If you go fast enough, you don't need that.
Air cooled motors.
Air cool it, bro. Fuck it. That I mean, I've been there before back in the day. Fuck, dude. KA days, Jesus. But yeah, I mean, other than the major part of that would be the ECU and tune. Still trying to figure out as far as like budget and who I'm gonna have do it. I can get. While I was in Oki, I was fortunate enough to get kind of hooked up with Panic with the Link ECUs, and I helped them develop their ZX110 plug and play stuff. And I was giving them feedback, and they were using my data logs to like map all their stuff for their product, and they were helping me out a lot. And then so I can get a good deal on a Link ECU if I wanted to go that route, which I know Adrian's not fond of.
That's why I'm laughing. It has
As
nothing to do
lately,
with the
but
company that you're.
It is what it is. I didn't have any problems with mine, so I don't know, AC and everything. Like it was good to go. I don't know why he's had bad luck with it, but my car ran phenomenal, and I had Cody over there in Okie, he's Air Force guy who was tuning stuff on the side, and he's really good. A lot of people have been going to him. Unfortunately, still no public dyno, but street tuning. He's got that shit down, and taking it to the track and beating on it. Never had any issues. AFRs were great. Car ran phenomenal and lasted good. So I was really happy with that. If anything, I can get him to tune it again or something. I'll figure out different options. I know Seth. We talked a little bit. I threw a hint out there like, "Hey, we're gonna tune the Sylvia." It'll be a long time before that happens, but I have obviously options. I just got to figure out what I'm gonna do. Locally, I could go to Martin, RS Enthalpy, but I'm kind of like 50-50 with Martin. Not trying to like throw shade at him or anything, but being in Tampa, a local over here, just seeing all kinds of stuff from Z Fever and stuff like that. I've seen really good, great stuff, and I've seen really terrible stuff. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want a ROM tune. With the setup that I'm making, it's just be like a basic T28 car, like street style, like trying to bring back that early 2000s vibe. So like
The
a nice,
300 horsepower reliable
yeah.
car.
I'm not trying to push any more than like 350 at max. I would still need head studs and head gasket, especially with an NA engine being a slightly higher compression, which I have. It's kind of works to my advantage on the S13 NA because they're slightly lower compression compared to S14 and S15 NA engines. So that's okay, but I still need a head gasket, a good thick head gasket, and some studs to make that reliable. Then I got pretty much everything cooling mod wise, thermostat, trust oil cooler that I need to throw on. I'm gonna do a swirl pot and all that stuff. So yeah, something just a nice, reliable 300 wheel horsepower type car, and go from there. But yeah, it's gonna be a minute just because it's just been trying to get back on our feet ever since moving back here. It's been a struggle trying to get stuff down financially. We just moved in to my grandparents' old house, so we got a lot of stuff going on, and I barely have any time to even mess with it. So
And I
we'll
know,
see.
like, I had asked Carter before because he's running his JZX in the States and living out in the middle of nowhere, basically. Um, do you have an issue with getting parts? I mean, obviously he said that he didn't really have an issue and he's hoarded a bunch of stuff. Obviously,
Not
it
in an
seems.
S chassis.
I mean, body panel wise, but when you start talking SRs and that kind of thing, it's not
I,
something that you can just go get off the shelf.
fucking SR stuff over here is insanely priced.
Yep.
Like you can, like I was just telling my wife because there was a lady who reached out to her like through like a old coworker. Her daughter bought a 2022 or something, 2022 Civic Sport, and she got like this Type R wing, replica wing. It was like a cheap one, and I was like, yeah, I can install it. Like some other people had turned her down. I was like, no, I can install it. Like bring it by, let me take a look at it. And I'm looking, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely like a cheaper brand. I don't know, like let's see how it goes. So I put it together. And I'm like, man, this thing is flimsy. And I was like, there's some things you can cheap out on, and there's some things you really can't. Like some things you can get by with, but I don't think a wing that is gonna have a lot of downforce and stuff. It's kind of flimsy. Is gonna but even with like S chassis stuff in Japan, there's a lot of options as far as good quality parts, and there's a lot of options with cheaper parts that are still pretty decent quality. I feel like over here, it's not so much. It's like the cheap shit is like really cheap, and then you got the higher end stuff. But then the stuff that is like the used market is like people want arm and a leg for this shit, especially SR parts.
And
Like you
shit
can
is like totally questionable quality, dude. Like,
yeah, like dude, my buddy, I won't name any names. I've known this dude forever. He had a SR for sale. A close friend of mine went to go. He had a shell. He was going to buy an engine, and he found out that the engine, there was something wrong with it. Like something happened with the timing. It was either something with the timing chain or the actual cam, like the cam gear. Something fucking happened, but they try to like cover it up, and we all known each other for years, bro. Like ever since we first started drifting, and he was trying to sell him that engine without him knowing about it. He found out about it, and he was trying to sell it to him for like $4,500. It was an S14 engine, I believe. It might have been an S13 engine, but I can't remember. But it was a complete swap, and he was like ready to go over there and buy that shit, drop cash. And then he found this shit out, and he's like, "Wait a minute, dude! Like, what the fuck is that all about?" You know, he didn't say anything. He just backed out of the deal because he didn't want to, you know, cause any problems. Or we all know each other for a long time. But it was just like, dude, like even that is just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
I think the expense of this sport in America has definitely turned like a lot of the bottom of the barrel, like which tends to be a large amount of the people involved, like into just shitty money hungry fucks.
yeah, people
Like,
I mean, my
really,
thing is
dude,
like I get that people like their Jay-Z's, they like their RVs. Some people, y'all are fucking crazy. So nobody really does, unless you can drop a shit ton of money. SRs. I don't see the point of not using an American engine personally, because even if you had some off the wall issue with it, there's so many people that you could bounce ideas off of if there's an issue or somebody's already ran into it. Getting parts from any local store, I mean, and not
I
having
mean,
to wait
I
for
don't
it to
know,
get
dude.
shipped in. And I'm that's a hill that I'll die on.
give me
Like
one
I
second,
said,
guys.
though,
I'm
Whether
gonna
like
grab a charger real quick.
the
whether it's a
event.
LS or a Coyote motor, because they're relatively cheap now.
I mean, it
Um,
still comes down. You got to weigh the cost of fitting the shit because it goes back to what I said, dude. Like every that event at Showtime, every fucking LS car was pitted up, blown the fuck up, right? Like every other motor ran perfectly fine. So it's
but I,
like even in the pits of like pro am shit, dude. Like Jay-Z's, I've seen Jay-Z's go down. I've seen more LS's go down than anything. There's a guy with an SR that's got an issue, but
but I think that has a
it's
lot to do with the mentality of you know most of the people that are getting into it now in the States, they're like, I can go buy a junkyard LS and run it as is, just like you could on a drag strip, which on a drag strip would probably work just fine. But now when you're revving it out and everything else, I mean, you got to do the maintenance on it. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, that's true, but I'm pretty sure everybody's doing everything except rings and bearings on these LSs between the cam, the top end packages, the oil bypass valve upgrades, which is like essential now. Like just in doing the swap to fit in a 240, you're pretty much already replacing all your gaskets, all your seals. Like you do have the people that are raw dog, like, okay, this is fresh out of the junkyard. We're putting like a used cam in it and letting it eat. And it comes back to bite them in the ass. But a good majority of these motors are getting touched. They're getting new head gaskets. They have new head bolts. They have the car intakes on them. They have the injectors on them. They're all running on a Holly or a tune like factory ECU with HP tuners. So I think ultimately, like, yeah, it does come down to like how thorough you want to be to make sure that the motor's good when you put it in. But generationally speaking, like there was a time where you could trust the used car parts market to not get fucked over, right? Like I've never told, like this is the stupidest thing that this dude told me that sold me or traded me like $4,000 worth of my wife's fab for this fucking SR. He was like, "Oh, I told you to inspect it. Like, why wouldn't you disassemble it when you got it? Right? Like, why would I have to if I, on good faith, we made a trade, understood the value of the money that's being exchanged here in the form of parts and barter, right? Like, if I want to blow an SR, why would I trade $4,000 in Wisefab for it? Right? I'm obviously expecting a good long block for fucking $4,000 worth of shit. Then we get it. Supposedly it ran. They just got it to take the AC parts off. Fucking, I put oil in it. I go to prime the fuel system. It's pissing. So I unflood the motor, come back out the next morning. All the oil's leaked out of the upper oil pan gasket where it seals to the block. There's oil pissing out of the timing chain tensioner and the head gasket area. And it's like, brother. Fucking, the one before that was like, oh, there's low compression in cylinder number 4. And I'm like, okay, that's just new rings. Send it, right? Fucking get it. The rod snapped in half, and on the upstroke on cylinder 4, it punched a hole into the cylinder wall. Right? So that was the first motor I got fucked over on here in Florida. And I traded that dude my LT1 swap with a T56, turnkey, small block Chevy swap for an S13.
I mean, that one seems a little bit easier to fix.
No, so both these motors now, because of the damage, like both these motors have to be sleeved. And the issue is,
I mean, it's fine.
Mazworks is not accepting individual jobs. Like they won't take a bottom end and be like, oh, sleeves and a line hone for stock pistons, done. Right? They're only accepting full builds, which to sleeve a block is to do a sleeve block stage whatever is like 10 fucking grand. For 10 grand, I'm going Jay-Z.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
Like I like a good SR, bro, but yeah, I mean at some point it's like, all right, just
bro,
throw a
for
Jay-Z
OSW skid pad, for the firm, for whatever other events I'm gonna drive, like an SR is plenty. And the people I'm gonna drive with, like an SR is plenty. And if I make it run the way I had them running in Oki, like I would have zero issues. But it's like getting that raw product of, hey, here's a good long block to put in the car to start with and go from there and do like my tips and tricks or whatever to make it last. I can't fucking do it. And I go on Marketplace. You know how S14, S15 pistons chip and crack?
Yeah, I think you were telling me that a long time ago.
Yeah, so it's a common thing on S14, S15 motors to have your pistons crack, and they just chip away at the top of the ringland. Fucking, there's a dude selling one as a turnkey swap with a blown out piston for $3,500 on Marketplace in Florida right now. $3,500.
For another $3,500, you can go get a whole C5.
Dude, for $3,500, I can go to the junkyard and get a 2JZGE, go get like forged internals with ARP head studs and a brand new OEM head gasket, and possibly a pair of cams, slap it in, and I have an 800 horsepower bottom at like 2JZ.
You can find those 2JZs good like on Marketplace for like $700. Like
bro,
freshly pulled out of a car.
There's 4 of them in the junkyard here for $500. Like here in town, there's 4 of them that I can go get for $500 a piece.
I don't know why you haven't snagged them, bro, because you're not gonna find them much longer.
Because
that's the game that I'm playing now is like what car do I want to get so where I can actually go out and have some fun and be more reliable than most.
Bro, in today's economy and to like what's available right now with the community, like the answer is Jay-Z. Like you're gonna spend the same going LS, you're gonna spend the same going SR. Like this shit's not cheap anymore.
I feel like
it's never really been cheap. I mean, it's been cheap for us to get cars in the past, but like, so like, I'm in between either trying to find a halfway decent IS 300 or find a C5 or spend the extra money and find a C5 or C6 Corvette. And, you know, it's not going to be anything crazy. I don't even plan on really changing out the power levels too much for anything. Just make it a reliable car. But
here's the thing: is how much are you going to spend? What trim are you going to get? What year are you going to get? Right? Because having raced Corvettes and working on multiple Corvettes over the last couple of years, I love a good Corvette. But what makes a good Corvette is really not what's on marketplace right now, right? You look at a C6, you're going to spend 20 grand just to get one. You're going to spend 25K to get one that's drift ready. What are the chances that they rebuilt the torque tube? What are the odds that there's a clutch that's been done in the last, say, 30, 40,000 miles in it? These are all the factors that you assume, right? And then you take it out to a track day, shit slips or blows, and now you got to drop a whole fucking transaxle to fix it.
Well, I'm hoping, in Florida, I could find that woman who unfortunately, her husband just passed away, and he's got a one of one, hardtop yellow Corvette that was built on December 21st, and it was the only one that rolled off the line, and it's got like 12,000 miles on it.
A Corvette estate sale. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could all dream, but like that's what it comes down to. So like you assume the 20 grand for buying the car base, and then the time, parts, and labor that it's going to take to bulletproof it per se to get it out to a track, and you're at 25, 27 grand. So translating that into a build, like, bro, I could put a 2JZ car together for like,
Well, like if you're looking at like an IS300 that may already be a manual, I mean, getting rid of that W58 for R154 or T56 and then rebuild the rear end. I mean, it all ends up being roughly the same price. I mean, it's just
oh yeah,
the plus side for me with the IS would I would still be able to keep, you know, the back seats and have my family in the car if I had to drive it.
well, dude, you go with the IS, you're talking what, 10 grand for one that's already manual. You're talking 4 grand for a CD009 swap. If you're pulling the motor out and you're doing a quick, like, forged internal turbo conversion with a standalone ECU and some injectors, like, there's probably another 6 to 7 grand depending how you go about it. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're in the same
you're
ballpark.
at 20 grand to have that car, but that car is probably going to last at a lot higher horsepower than buying that Corvette for 20 grand.
Well, I'm in the same ballpark as Kevin. I'm not having some super high horsepower car. Like it's not. I don't need it. Like I'd rather go out and have stock knuckles and learn everything, basically start over fresh, than go out and
Yeah.
have every single add-on part that I can get and think that I'm doing something when reality it's the parts are I'm I'm not working for the parts are working for me. So
Yeah, there is a big buildup to like when you are above the level of the car. That a lot of people, dude, like I go to OSW, I watch Pro-Am, and like that is not the case for a majority of the people driving. Like, regardless of stock bolt-on or like fully built Pro-Am cars, like the car is too much for most of these guys. You watch Formula Drift like Pro Spec, and that's all Jared Deanda says, like the entire day. Right? Is like the car is too much for them.
I mean, you could just watch it by their in-car vids. I mean,
oh yeah.
well, like if you had like let's say a 40 car field or 35 car field, and I came out there with a car that was suspension wise more or less basically stock or engine wise basically stock, and I got top 16, I'd be much more happy with myself than if I was top 10 or podium with a car that was fully built, because at the end of the day, I really didn't learn anything
Yeah.
because the car did everything for me. So that's my hot take on it.
I think it's some people, they get to that point of the competition and stuff. They're trying to chase that championship, and they're trying to make a name for themselves, and sponsors are looking at them and stuff like that. And like what y'all were talking about earlier about it becomes a business at some point, and y'all were talking about how everybody's like after every run, somebody's tweaking with the ECU and this and that and doing this and alignments. And I'm like, it kind of like made me think. I was like, I wonder if like, and I don't know because I've never worked with a team like in the pits or anything like that on a pro level or anything. And I'm thinking, I'm like, some of that could just be like slightly bit of a show because the sponsors are looking at them like, people are getting paid. Like they want to see you guys working, doing something. You know what I mean?
No,
Well, on
so
the other
having
end of
worked.
that spectrum, though, before I'm not trying to cut you off, Adrian, but I think on the other end of that spectrum is, um, if everything is solid from the get go, I think that's even more of a show to that company that, hey, my parts are this good that they're not really having to mess with it. The two dudes that are, I think they're Finnish. They've got the S15s that are like white, red, and blue. I mean, their cars never seem to really break. I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but
So I can tell you from experience, actually working with some of these drivers, being in the pits with some of the crew chiefs and whatnot. And this is like not just drifting, because one of my buddies that I've had this discussion with is actually on the Porsche like GT Cup teams. He's a crew chief for whatever the Cup series is, or the Porsche racing program for the drivers who choose to buy into it. And dude, a lot of it is like these drivers, like you're on a pit crew to keep a car going with parts that the driver has no fucking clue how to like fuck with. Right? Like they have a suspension guy on the team because that driver doesn't know how to put that wise fab on the car. If they do, they don't know like what Ackerman and like they don't know the fine details of like, okay, I need this change to this degree to improve my run. A lot of that shit's a placebo effect. Like we'll have drivers that come in and they're like, oh, I need a 16th of an inch, like toe out or toe in or something, or like my alignment has to be a 16th, right? And you measure it and it's at an eighth, and it's like, bro, that 16th of an inch doesn't fucking make a difference, right? It's like you jack the car up, you get under there, you like tap it with a fucking wrench, wait 30 seconds, come back out, drop the car, and you're like, okay, go run it. And they go out, they run a really good fucking run, and they're like, see, I fucking told you, like, that's exactly what I needed. And you're like, in your head, you're like, yeah, cool. You're right. But like the amount of times that happens more often than not is it's up there, dude. Like you just have drivers that operate the vehicle and they just kind of like go off of what their buddies say, what they hear on videos and shit like that. And like most of the little things can be driven through. And that goes with like building a car that doesn't break. So you spend more time driving it and getting comfortable. And as things start to develop, like as your tires wear out and your alignment slightly changes, you pick up on the fact that you have less grip. So you need to modulate your throttle more, right? You have to slip your clutch. Like you develop driver techniques to adapt to certain situations. And then it just becomes muscle memory that like, hey, when I come around for that second lap after I did a lead, I'm going to be a little squirrely or a little loose towards the end of this second lap, right?
That's part of the reason why I personally like hot lapping a lot, like just fucking going out there, because like I'm like feeling like, okay, does the car feel different on this lap? You know what I mean? Like trying to, like you said, modulate throttle or whatever. Tires are getting hotter, and rubbers, stuff like that. Like it's like, okay, it's kind of like a learning thing
because I
from
mean,
like.
in the perfect world for a team, all they're doing is just changing tires and adding
Yeah.
fuel. I mean,
Changing tires, tire pressures, refueling, changing out nitrous bottles if you're at that level. Like there are those times where, hey, there is a significant change. Like when James Dean was 2 rounds ago, they're swapping out the entire rear end for new coilovers for different spring rates. But people don't realize, like, hey, when you go from like an 8 to a 4, you have to change the valving and potentially the fluid, like the oil that's in that shock body, for it to flow correctly, right? Like the general rule of thumb is like if you get a shock that's valved at a spring rate that's on it, you can go plus or minus 2 without like being out of whack for the most part. Like it's not ideal, but you can get away with it. But like, you're not taking a rear spring or a rear shock that's valved at 14 kilograms and putting a 4 kilogram spring on it and being like, we have a proper setup. Like, let's go drive and be competitive.
I'm thinking of in Oki. I was laughing because my KTS coilers that I initially had on the 110.
Yeah.
I think they call them like 12, 8 or 10 or some shit from the factory. I put 22K front springs on it. It felt great though. It ran great. I loved it. I love the way it felt.
I think that Altezza that I had, that was probably like the most fun car that I had, just because I didn't really care about it too much. Um, that thing had ridiculous like spring rates on it, and for whatever reason, it just worked because there was no power behind the car. It was like a 4-cylinder beam,
Yeah.
but
When I got
it was like 22 in the front and like 32 in the rear. Like when you hit a bump, you felt that shit.
See,
But
this shit all comes into play, I think, more when you get into competitive driving and you're worried about like incline changes on a track, bank riding, proximity, what it's doing under compression, what your toe curve is, and stuff like that. Because for me, I want the chaser to squat and gain toe. Right. So I don't know if you've seen that video on Instagram of that S14, that pro charged S14 on the dyno, and homeboy sitting at like some minor toe in, probably like an eighth of an inch toe in, and they go full tilt on the dyno, and his shit, you can see his wheels turn in like a solid inch, bro. It's insane. It's just one wheel, but you see it dip in every time that he gets on the throttle. And like, that's when you're buying suspension components and you're adjusting the arms in the back, it's not a matter of like, dude, I've seen this stupid shit since being back here, right? People put adjustable arms in the back and then they go and they pull up like factory specs of toe and camber and caster, and they like adjust it like half a degree, and they're like, oh, I'm a half inch or a half a degree toe in from like factory, right? And they're like, that's good. I'm gonna go to my track day and have like go do shit. Like, people don't realize that, hey, adjusting that traction rod, like at least on an S chassis, extending that traction rod actually dissipates how much toe out you get under compression. Or like if you want to get really competitive, completely switching up to like a grip kit actually adds toe in. It changes the geometry and toes you in under compression.
Yeah, I've seen those. Kids. I think they have those for the V chassis too, like Z's and G's.
Yeah, I mean they make them for pretty much all the chassis nowadays because everybody's competitively drifting them.
That's what I was trying
And
to tell when I was driving those cars for Auto Shop Z for a little bit,
yeah,
E35s and shit, and I was like trying to give them pointers, like because what's the name was trying to be more competitive, the owner, and I'm
Brett.
like, y'all really want me to like help y'all out and like drive with you guys, like take what I have to say like serious, because I've been studying these cars and I've been drifting a lot longer than you guys. I'm no pro, but I'm like, and I was like, y'all need a couple of things, like bolt on things that help y'all out like tremendously with these underpowered cars. And it was just in one ear out the other. That was one of the things that I mentioned to them. I was like, y'all got to get that kit because y'all are losing grip, and like you guys don't realize it and stuff. And they're like, okay, yeah. And it's like, all right, bro. And they're out there like struggling with these SR cars that are making like 400, wheel, and these JZ cars. Like most of those JZ cars, those comp cars are making power, dude, out there.
Yeah.
And I was like, if y'all trying to keep up with them, y'all trying to be serious, man, y'all need a few things, help y'all out if y'all are staying under power like that.
It's
But
there wasn't too many cars hanging with that black and white JZX. That was like the first
oh,
JZX
Shoon's
I've ever
JZX.
seen,
Yeah.
and I was like, it didn't matter where he was at on the track. Like, if he really wanted to, he could power out of everything, and somehow he magically got grip when nobody else could. Like, that car was like, I think personally, like the peak of having your car dialed in.
It sucked when he took a break from driving that thing, but I also understand when you win so many events consecutively, like it's like what else is there to do?
Oh yeah, he was going out there for events, and it was just a track day for him.
You did that Oki car?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it was.
was
Is
it was Shun.
that the one who was with
Look, it had Power Secret on the side of it, I think.
the
Oshiro's son.
PSR?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
PS Racing.
that car was nasty. He drove that car phenomenally.
And that's the thing is that's a grassroots car, bro. Like at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, like to me, that's a grassroots car. He's not pushing a crazy amount of power. It's gripped up in the right way. His suspension setup, where like if he floors it, he can float the car. But if he modulates his throttle, he can be exceptionally gripped up to run people down. And it's having like the versatility in a build like that I think is like optimum grassroots level car. Because that's the kind of car that I'm trying to build. Like these custom setup coilovers, like I want to be able to line the JZX up with somebody who's a decent pro-am driver, keep up with them, but then at the same time, like, oh, let's take the car to final bout if that's an option for me, and like go drive final bout and float the car with all those grassroots guys. So it's the best of like both worlds, finding the power that clicks to make that happen, maybe putting like a rotary trim dial in to turn the boost down, whatever needs to happen, and having a car that can do both sides of it. But I don't think that level of like setup is there. I think you have the guys that want to compete that are like they gravitate towards the build, spending the money, putting the quality parts on, and then they start figuring out like, hey, this is for me, this is not for me. They start figuring out what the benefits are of the kit as they start talking to people, using it, doing their research. And then you have guys that are like the complete opposite, where they're like, I just want to keep it simple and there's no growth. And like you have two heavy ends of the spectrum, and like the middle ground doesn't have a large population of where it's like, I want to like be loose and be gripped up and have like a quality balance. I want to have enough power to run with these guys if I drive hard enough, but also be able to chillax if this guy lines up from this end of the spectrum.
Well, I think a lot of it too is obviously the biggest thing is chasing the clout now. I mean, all of this stuff from the 80s, early 90s, well, I'm gonna say 90s in general, is kind of making its way back with flashy cars, and everybody wants their uh, Haraguchi fucking FC with 22s on their sedan, and they're trying to have a flashy car before they have a dialed car, uh, without actually doing the work to make it flashy or
Yeah.
dial it in and be flashy at the same time, because obviously that's a shit ton of money. Uh, like I see it every day driving, because I drive 95 a lot. Like I live 5 minutes from 95, and you'll see cars on 95 that are like, that car could be so sweet, and you're just like, fucking why? Like why? Like, and it's mainly American cars, because obviously, but like there's a dude that lives down the street from me, and I haven't talked to him, but I know for a fact it's a Mark IV Supra, and I know for a fact that he is not, the car is stock, other than like an exhaust. Why are you running slicks on the back of it with, you know, fucking 16-inch weld wheels and skinnies on the front? Like, damn well that car doesn't need that shit.
Imposter alert, bro.
Like, I've seen the car. I've driven next to the car.
Better watch out for them boost up Supras, dude.
Yeah.
No,
All 380, 400 horsepower of
bro,
it.
that shit ain't taking my fucking Suburban. Like, let's be real here. What
You
you got?
never know, dude. All right. Well, we've exceeded our time by like 39 minutes. So,
No, it's all good.
well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And hopefully next week we're a little more organized and have some of the key guys back on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Seth's dealing with the anxiety of the track day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, real quick, I was gonna ask 'cause I saw like a little bit. Can I ask what happened? What's up with the Skyline?
So he got it as a shit car, like on short notice
Yeah,
prior to the last round, right?
yeah,
They took it out. It blew up. They had a whole bunch of troubles. Seth ripped the motor out, went through. He did the Haltech Nexus PDM and
rewired the
stuff.
whole car.
Yeah, the
yeah.
whole car rewired
I
with
saw his
Haltech.
video earlier.
Yeah, they built the motor, sent it out to a machine shop, and I guess first pass out, Donald took the car out and first pass, first turn on the initiation, it shit a rod.
No fucking way, dude.
Yeah, so
I mean, it sucks because it's the name of the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but yeah, dude. So I'm guessing that machine shop isn't as good as they should have been with that, especially with a tricky motor like an RB. And
well, I think didn't he fly to Japan for that?
he flew to Japan to get the parts, to bring them
Yeah.
back, to give to the machine shop for them to do their quick turnaround build on it. And yeah, unfortunately, it took a shit. So
that sucks, man.
they got Donald. He got Donald another car from a friend. They sourced the car for him so he can still compete this weekend. But yeah,
Yeah, I think he
that
said it was a
Skyline's gonna
LS powered Safiro.
Oh, I think Michi drove that car before.
probably,
Yeah, I think I was talking to him about it a while back.
bro. The I don't know. Maybe we'll save this for like another episode. But yeah, there's some stuff catching up to do with the build qualities down there for sure, and capability. Seth's definitely at like a higher level of build than I think they can support.
Well, maybe he can turn that shit around. You know, the
I
shop
mean,
looks.
the thing is, he already has tenfold. Like,
Yeah.
I
I mean, just
mean,
the introduction of like the parts that he supplies and the tuning capability, having the only dyno there. And on top of that, it's not a cheap dyno. Like he went top of the line for that shit. It's the other niches that it takes to support motorsports.
Mm.
You know,
and I
like
know he had spoke about his future plans for the shop and in-house machining. So it's gonna get there for sure. It's just
yeah.
I think he's testing out people that are say they're machinists
It's
before
hard
he
to
pulls the
trust
trigger on
people
all that kind of
nowadays, dude.
stuff.
Oh yeah. Sometimes
Unfortunately,
you just gotta pay for the name, dude. I mean, I'm at that crossroad right now where it's like I don't want to trust a random machine shop
yeah.
to fix my
But
SR.
all the names over there, at least on his side of the world, are all backed up.
Yeah.
You know, sucks.
We'll see what happens. I think he just needs to go Jay-Z. Fix
Well,
the problem overall. But
he's so
Donald,
mad he's talking about going to Rotary. So
I know. You know, it's not Donald's car. I know Donald's a big RB guy. So it was funny to have.
yeah.
I saw the little intro of Seth in the car on the live stream earlier, and he was like cussing out RBs and shit. It's funny.
Yeah,
But,
he's not too happy with it, and I wouldn't be either. But I mean, at the
yeah.
end of the day, I don't think it was his fault. And
Yeah, shit happens,
it
bro. Like you
happens,
said,
dude.
it's name of the game, right? Shit happens, but you'd expect like you put money into that shit, or you go, you pay somebody to do a job, you expect them to do it right.
Yep.
That's what sucks. He's got a guy coming from Japan, driving a car, for him, and it's a big deal. It's not.
100%.
It's not Yeah. Anyways.
Shit, it's shitty. It's just a
Yeah.
shitty situation. for
I was
everybody
rooting for him,
involved.
man. Fucking, you know.
I mean, it's no
it's-
different. It's no different than the car that I got sponsored to drive when I went down for my round in the Philippines. I mean, it was what, a GT35R on a bone stock SR20 with a stock trans and like a twin plate clutch. And first pass out, like we took the car out and just driving from the pit up the pit lane onto the track, like the steering wheel was doing this and the car was like going straight or veering, like
Oof.
doing its own thing. So come to find out, there were no rack bushings in the rack.
Nice. I was gonna say something to do with the rack, 100%.
Rack bushings checked out. And so bring it back in the pit. They fixed that. And I go back out and I was having issues with the car. Like it wasn't running right. And then bring it back in. They're like, oh, it's the transmission. Just don't shift into this gear. So now I'm like, first to third shifting, kick in, and then third checks out. So they're like, okay, we're going to stop. And we go back to the villa and they're like, I have the pictures. They have the SR gearbox out of the car, right? And they're like fixing the gear set in the driveway of this villa. And they put it in. We go back to competition day, like no practice, haven't completed a lap in this car, hasn't ran right. Gearbox blows up and the head gasket blew.
Nice.
Like both at the same time. So then we get a rental car. I managed to qualify like 9th at that competition. And Fumi managed to qualify 4th, I believe. And we go out for my first battle. I'm chasing. I chuck it in, and the dude's just kind of floating. So I'm like long e-brake. I go to like in second gear, I just like rev it up a little bit and I ease off the clutch and then I floor it. Like I get into throttle with it so I can start surging with him and the axle gives out.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I've talked to
I had
Donald
my
about it before. I'm like, dude, I feel bad for you guys who travel out there. Like, I feel like a lot of foreigners go out there and they have a lot of bad luck. Like I've seen you, I've seen Donald multiple times. I've seen Kiro-san, Michi, and all them guys. So I'm like, dude, it's like I feel like it's 9 times out of 10 where it's always bad luck with a car. Like car's not prepped right or some raggedy ass like school drift car, and they don't take care of it, and then comes down to competition time and you got 5 things wrong with it and you don't do well. So
Yep, it's shitty, dude. But eventually the shops have to be stood up to output the quality of work that needs to be on these cars for the drivers to drive them competitively. Like they're not high horsepower builds. Like I'm pretty sure a majority of those cars are like 350 to 550 range.
yeah,
But they're rocking stock R200 diffs and axles and that have been ghetto rigged to fit the cars and the swaps and shit like that. And it's just, it's not going to work. Right. Like,
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak on Seth's business like that, but from what we've been told offline, I mean, there's some pretty big things in the works. Maybe he'll come out and talk about it,
heck yeah,
but
dude.
he's changing the game over there of expectation. So um, it it should only be the up and up from here on out.
Nice. All in good time, man.
yep. All right, guys, we got to bounce.
All right, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Of
man.
course.